this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ Tolliver. And Tolliver, we have some new listeners joining us this week.
We sure do. A warm welcome to the listeners of WSKG in Binghamton, New York. And I do mean warm. I'm sweating. It's so hot out, Jeremy. Oh, my God.
Well, by the way, not just Binghamton, Ithaca, Elmira, across the border in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It's great to have you with us here on The Middle. And this hour, we're talking about America's standing in the world. Now, President Trump has long talked about wanting the country to be respected, but it's clear he doesn't think that respect comes from America's goodwill to other countries. He has slashed U.S. foreign aid and launched a trade war against friends and foes alike. According to a global poll by Ipsos, just 46% of people in 29 countries surveyed think the U.S. will have a positive influence around the world. That is a 13% drop since last fall. The poll also finds China is now seen as more likely to have a positive influence in the world than the United States. So with that in mind, we want to hear from you. Are you worried about America's standing in the world? Tolliver, let people know how they can get in touch with us.
Yeah, you can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com. You can also comment on our live stream on YouTube. I'm watching it all, okay? And get them in early. I'll get you in the air, okay?
All right. Well, joining us this hour, a great panel. Ed Luce, U.S. national editor and columnist at the Financial Times and author of Zvig, The Life of Zbigniew Brzezinski, America's Great Power Prophet. Ed, welcome to The Middle.
Delighted to be with you, Jeremy.
And General Wesley Clark is here as well, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe. General Clark, welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
And before we get to the phones, let me just ask each of you, General Clark, as someone who has commanded parts of the military as well as NATO forces, why does America's standing in the world matter?
I think the principles that America stood for from 1945 until, let's say, today, mostly, are the principles that others aspire to. And when others aspire to your principles, they come to your country, they open their doors to you, they welcome tourists, they cooperate, they give us diplomatic support in terms of trying to resolve conflicts peacefully. They give power to the United States of America, influence, and that's That's the name of the game.
Ed Luce, what do you think, as our resident Brit on the panel this hour? Why does America's standing in the world matter?
Well, I think as General Clark just said, it's not just the military hardware, America's superiority in terms of its weapons, or indeed its sort of research labs, its universities. It's its appeal, it's its attractiveness, it's its ability to have alliances, to have allies that multiplies America's power. And that, of course, is largely a function of whether America is an attractive and reliable partner, a lead partner, a first amongst equals, but nevertheless a partner. And if America ceases to behave like a partner, if its standing in the world falls, then those alliances are going to start retreating and shriveling up, and that will reduce America's power and ability to shape the world.
And do you think that that's happening right now?
Yes.
General Clark, what about you? Where do you think things stand at the moment in terms of the U.S. reputation, 6 months into President Trump?
It's gone downhill.
Explain. Why do you think that?
You know, it is, as Edward said, it's about reliability and consistency. And we're the lead nation in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We have alliances with Japan and Korea. And the alliances are more than just military hardware. They're about nations with similar values who work together to make the world better for everyone. And of course, the military backs it up. That's the strategic underpinnings of this. But it's not just the military. And so when you come in and you play with tariffs and threaten other nations, allies, and so forth, it's just inconceivable to them that America, after 75 years, is behaving this way. People in Canada, people in France, people in Indonesia, people in South America, they say, "What happened? What happened? You taught us to believe in democracy and in these values, and now you turn your back on us." In Africa, you've pulled out all of your assistance. You were the big humanitarians. You tried to help people with AIDS. Now they're going to die. Why? And so the explanation of, well, we don't have enough money, America's really strapped, it just doesn't wash. This is the wealthiest country in the world. You know, when I retired from NATO, the European Union and the United States had about the same gross domestic product. Now we're about if we're 100, the European Union is like 65. So they've way fallen behind, and yet proportionally, they're doing more for other nations than we are. No, it's a real shame, and people feel personally betrayed abroad because they came here, they went to school, they came through our universities, they learned our languages, they learned our culture, they watch our movies, and they always thought there was something inherently good about America. They listened to Ronald Reagan, City on a Hill. They saw the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was he called an evil empire, and it was. They saw the efforts we made to try to assist nations in Africa, the Middle East, our alliances with Japan and Korea, how under President Joe Biden he brought these two historic adversaries together. I mean, a lot of things have been done in the last 75 years that they can be quickly undone, and many of them have been.
There's another aspect of this, Ed Luce. I was just in Europe, and one of the things I heard from a number of people is that they didn't want to come to America right now because they were worried about what's happening with immigration, and that they, just even as a tourist, might be detained, questioned. It would be unpleasant for them, and it wouldn't be a welcoming situation.
Yeah, I've actually been teaching at Brown University up in Rhode Island for the last year, and about half this is undergraduates, about half my students are foreigners on visas. And they started asking, well, should we go away for spring break? And then should we go away for the summer vacation? And the advice I was told by the university administration to give them was, no, we can't guarantee you'll be let back into the country. So future students are taking note of this and diverting to Australia, Canada, Britain, different places. And that means future, scientific researchers. If you look at, the extraordinary technological success of the United States, 40 to 50% of the sort of entrepreneurs that have started these companies were foreign born. In other words, they're naturalized Americans or maybe just green card holders. It's hard to measure the future innovation you are cutting off or diverting to other countries, including China, especially China. But it is real nonetheless. And that is a profound source, not just of American power, but of American prosperity. So I think, and I've been like you, Jeremy, to Europe a couple of times recently, and to Canada 2 or 3 times recently. I hear exactly the same thing. People not coming here on vacation, students not applying here, people who are going to come for conferences to the United States just thinking it's not worth the risk.
Let me just come at it from the other side for a second, General Clark. President Trump said in his inaugural address that America would be respected and admired under his leadership, and he would say that it is more respected now than it was before. Republican Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, just one of the many Trump-supporting Republican senators that there is, recently posted on social media that thanks to President Trump, our borders are closed, our nation is respected again, and America is back on track. What do you say to people who think that America is in a better position right now when it comes to its reputation and the respect it's receiving from other countries than it was before?
Well, there's no question that the immigration system needed to be overhauled. And especially from 2021, 22, people came in too often. We didn't have enough administrative courts and judges. We couldn't handle them. We gave people the parole so they could come in and wait a year, 2 years, 3 years for court dates. And we know that there were some potential terrorists who probably came in during this period. But the truth is that if you go abroad and you ask people of all political persuasions, how's the United States doing now? They're not going to say, we respect you more because you said you'd get rid of millions of people who live in your country. They're not going to respect us more because we say, you come to our immigration and come in this country, we're going to take your cell phone and check and see whether you said anything bad about our president. And so there's a lot of concern about what are America's values today. It is not about American power. And so when TV all over the world shows pictures of these ICE personnel in masks, arresting people, it's a shocking thing. They look at the record of Mussolini, of Hitler, of how authoritarian governments take control. And they see something in the United States that looks like extortion, looks like threat, people being afraid in a way they've never been afraid before. People tell me they're afraid to come into this country because if they said something on an email, they might get arrested, turned around and sent back. So I don't think that I'm dealing with an isolated instance here. I think this is a broad current of opinion. And at the same time, foreign leaders are just, they're falling all over themselves to try to get into President Trump's good graces. He's got power like no American president's ever had, I think. He is truly dominant on the Supreme Court and of the Congress. So, they look at that and they say, there's no way to appeal to America except to get on his good graces. I mean, it's obsequious looking. And the people abroad who aren't the leaders look at this and say, my, what's happened to America?
A reminder that you can reach us at 844-4-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. And Tolliver, we heard from Ed about Canada. There's perhaps no relationships that's more strained since Trump took office than the U.S.-Canada one.
Yeah, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called out America's global leadership capabilities after Trump issued tariffs on Canada earlier this year.
Canada is ready to take a leadership role in building a coalition of like-minded countries who share our values. We believe in international cooperation. We believe in the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And if the United States no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
By the way, Tolliver, according to that Ipsos poll, only 6 months ago, 52% of Canadians saw the U.S. as a positive influencer. Now only 19% feel the same.
My
so that's
God.
a big drop.
I don't know the math.
And our
that's
listeners
huge.
know that because we've done these Canadian specials and we've heard from the Canadians. We'll be right back with more of your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife.
Boom, boom. This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you if you're worried about America's standing in the world. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media. We got a bunch of people already coming in, so get yours in the queue, okay?
All right, I'm joined by Ed Luce, U.S. national editor and columnist at the Financial Times, and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, General Wesley Clark. Let's get to the phones because they are lighting up. Tom is in Minneapolis. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, hey, I appreciate General Clark's service and the professor's comments, but I do disagree fairly significantly. I apologize. Parts of what they may have said at the end I missed based on calling in. But regards the United States standing in the world, my impression from the initial comments of your guests was that the determination of how we fared was based on almost entirely on what other countries' impression might have been. I don't think that is necessarily the way to evaluate what our standing is and what the reality is. I think, and I will say I am a middle guy, but I have been increasingly impressed by the steps and positions that the United States have made, and I think that they have, if anything, improved the standing and recognition of the United States. And I would counter very strongly the suggestion that was made, I think it was by General Clark, I would say respectfully, to suggest that the traditional values of the United States are no longer in play. That's not an accurate statement at all.
Well, Tom, let me just ask you one quick follow-up question, which is, you said you're impressed by some of the things that are happening. Just give me one. What are you happy about that you're seeing that you think improves America's standing in the world?
Okay, happy might be a bit of an overstatement, but for instance, looking at the incredible challenge of the Middle East and Iran's position, frankly stated to, their desire to eliminate Israel and its people, as well as the United States, and how the United States has responded and negotiated the incredible, difficult challenges vis-a-vis Iran and the nuclear challenge. I guess I'd say, well, I'm not happy about it. I believe that the actions that have been taken, the communications that have surrounded that, have actuty been positive for America in all ways.
Let General Clark respond to what he said. Thanks for calling, Tom. General Clark, your response to Tom.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that the United States jumped in here and did what it had to do in Iran. I think that's a real positive. One of my criticisms of the previous administration was they kept talking about de-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. And in the Middle East, that was an invitation for the bad guys to escalate against us. But, here comes the but. We did strike. There was a tremendous outcry in the United States by the president's supporters against what he did. So he only did it once. The Iranians cried uncle because the Israelis were taking out the regime props, the Basij and the police and so forth. They were more worried about regime change than they were about anything else. And they asked for the ceasefire. We said we forced Israel to stop. And so where we are right now is Iran's still defiant. The Houthis have just sunk 2 ships. And this is a long way from being finished. Maybe I can send you my op-ed in the USA Today a week or so ago that said, please, President Trump, get a comprehensive solution to this. Not just one bomb mission and then everybody says ceasefire. It's not about ceasing fire. It's about doing something about a nation that wants to destroy another nation. But on a broader question, if I could, Jeremy, look, if you really want to know what America's standing in the world is, well, why wouldn't you ask people abroad? That's what's it about. So what do you think? You ask the French, say, how do you think America's doing? They say, one former French foreign ministry high-level official told me, you're like our enemy now. We can't count on you.
That's not nice to hear,
People in Indonesia told me, we've been to your country and we went to your schools, and now what do you stand for? They're confused by this. And the reason they are, and I want to say this to you very clearly, the president is a genius at political messaging. There's never been anybody any stronger than this. He wants to own the libs. He owns them. Every single day, there's something that grabs the headlines, and it's working for him, I guess, although the polls don't necessarily show that. But he's got the Democrats on the back foot. There's all the time. And yet, it comes to what happens abroad and how people perceive it abroad. It's an entirely message getting out there.
Well, and speaking of messaging, Ed Luce, as I was getting ready for this show, and you look at all the things that come up that may affect people's perceptions and the sort of reputation of the United States around the world, and we talked about the tariffs and other things. But there's also a moment that happened a few months back when Ukraine's President Zelensky was in the Oval Office and was publicly dressed down, pun intended, by the president and the vice president for not wearing a suit. He was ungrateful for U.S. support. Listen to this.
Now you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Many people saw that as a particularly low point for America's image around the world. What do you think, Ed Luce?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a deep shock to people, not just to Ukrainians, but to America's NATO partners and to others around the world, that what they saw as Trump and particularly J.D. Vance, in fact, blaming the victim here. Ukraine is not the aggressor in this war. It was Russia that invaded Ukraine. And Trump was essentially saying, you started this war, you're keeping it going, which is not, regardless of, how you think this war should be settled, it's just not an accurate description of who started the invasion of Ukraine. I think a separate but quite similar incident happened when South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was in the Oval Office. And Trump just kept saying there's white genocide going on in South Africa, which is simply not true. And if you want to think of America's standing in the world, the fact that the US has closed off asylum to pretty much everybody, but opened up asylum to white South Africans on completely baseless grounds, I can't overstate just how damaging it is to the moral and ethical reputation of the United States to be doing this. And so your previous caller, I appreciate what he said, particularly about Iran. But General Clark's right. If you ask people about this, there is a revulsion at that kind of signaling. It's seen as profoundly un-American. It's seen as a really sort of dark turn. And, in a world where there are two poles at the moment, there's really China and the US. All the other countries, including allies of the United States, are scrambling around to see if they can find some third way, because they don't think they can rely on the United States anymore, and nobody has any illusions about China's attractiveness. I mean, there are those in sub-Saharan Africa who get water and infrastructure from China who are benefiting. But in terms of the West, nobody's under any illusions about China, but they think America has gone, and the America they knew has gone. And in that respect, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, who you had that clip of earlier, I think was speaking for the world.
Yeah. Let me get another call in. Diana's in Central Texas. Diana, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hey, yes, I'm focused today on thinking about how I believe the United States has damaged its reputation worldwide with assistance. I'm with a faith-based organization. After I retired from the federal government, I have been working with a Christian denomination that we have worldwide presence, and there are many faith-based organizations in addition to Christian organizations within the United States that provide the hands and feet of aid to foreign countries. My denomination has a missionary that is the director of the HIV prevention and treatment program in Burundi, and they provide the infrastructure in the clinic and the manpower, but they relied a great deal on HIV medication from the United States. And for me personally, I worked during the Reagan administration, and I took disability claims for people in the early parts of the HIV crisis in the United States. And we couldn't get, people paid quickly enough before they passed. And now what I see, I believe it sends the message to places like that have HIV programs that the United States just doesn't care about them anymore because it's not our problem, or it feels like, well, it's not our problem. And so I think that it's a mistake, and I believe that also, I was thinking about this when they had the earthquake in Thailand, that the U.S. presence as far as the response was not anything like it's been in the past, and for me it feels like it sends the message that the United States can't be relied on to show up, even through its faith-based organizations.
Yeah. Diana, thank you for that call, and thank you for the work that you have done over the years. Really appreciate it. Wesley Clark, there are people, experts, who have warned that because of cuts to foreign aid, and it was like day one that the Trump administration slashed USAID, that millions of people, especially in Africa, will die because of food aid, because of HIV medication, et cetera. Do you think that is something that the administration is going to turn around on and say, actually, this is good for America for us to be providing this support, or you think this is a done deal?
I don't think it's a done deal, but I hope we will turn around on it. But we have wrecked the institutions, the people that were there with their families working. We told them, pack it up, come home, and it's over. So I think it's going to be a time-consuming, difficult task to reestablish what this Russia says it's now going to take our place and create its own AID. China's out there pushing all the time. But, the thing about this is that the president has a responsibility not only to reflect the opinion of the people who voted for him, but to reflect the people, all the people in the United States. He's the president for all of us. We want him to be successful. We want America to be successful. But he has to not only reflect popular opinion, he also has to educate. And in this case, I think there's a big misunderstanding of the American people about how much we actually spend helping others abroad. It's minuscule compared to what we spend on everything else in this country.
Tolliver, what is coming in online?
A bunch of stuff. So McDuffie in Georgia, who's a regular commenter, shout out to McDuffie, says, I think the country has been taken advantage of, if not abused, in matters such as trade and tariffs for so many years that now we have the administration doing something about it that will earn us a new and better respect worldwide. Tamara in Dayton says, it's too late to feel worried. Trump, his administration, and the Republicans are all about making money and coercing respect by retribution. He doesn't know the definition of respect. I feel betrayed, angry, and sad. And I'm kind of piggybacking on that. General Clark, just sitting here thinking, I'm like, do you think that this is reparable after this administration, like the damage that we perceive him to have done?
I think it's hard because the American people voted President Trump back in, and he had tremendous negatives after his first term, and yet he was put back in. So if you're abroad looking at this, I think you have to raise serious questions. He has accumulated power. He's got the court behind him and doing things that no other president's ever been able to do. As he said on Memorial Day, I guess it was, just, I've got it all. He's got the Olympics, he's got this, he's got that, he's got everything. I hope he can see through this not just revenge and retribution, but wisdom, forgiveness, leadership, compassion, understanding for others. That's what people have looked to America for, and they look to the president to represent those qualities.
Let me sneak in another call here. Leslie in Detroit, Michigan. Leslie, go ahead with your thoughts about America's standing in the world.
So I spent 4 months last summer in the UK and Europe, and was in an academic program where I met dozens of people from all over Europe and outside of the EU. And I can tell you, out of everyone, and I returned right before the election, so I can tell you, out of everyone that I met, dozens and dozens of people that I met, the only person that was positive on President Trump and hopeful for his election.
We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, Leslie.
I wasn't sure if it was just me.
Yeah, no, I thought maybe it was me, but no. Yeah. Try one more time, Leslie. Let's see.
Okay, is that any better?
Not really, but why don't you call back and maybe we'll try to get back to you. Sorry about that. Let me just sneak in Matt here in Augusta, Georgia. Matt, quickly with your thoughts.
I just wanted to give my perspective. I'm a scientist, and the relationship that I think we have with the world in terms of science is completely been demolished. I think countries used to send their best and brightest to the United States to get education and training and be leaders in the science world. And with the new administration and the cuts towards scientific funding and the NSF and other funding agencies. I really think that, the best and the brightest from the United States are going to go elsewhere, and the repercussions might not be felt today or tomorrow, but, a generation from now, we will really feel that we are no longer leaders in the way that, we once used to win World War II.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for that. Ed Luce, just briefly, you'd brought this up before about our scientific research and all the people that come in to study in the United States.
So I think most foreigners don't study America's annual budget, but this one, the big beautiful bill, has been studied, partly because it's such a memorable bill, and partly because it's the signature legislation of President Trump in his second term. And what this bill does, we've been hearing a lot about it. It cuts Medicaid in order to partly fund the extension of the tax cuts. Right. But we of course know about the massive increase to the ICE budget and immigration enforcement. But what's been less remarked upon is the dramatic cuts to the National Institutes of Health, to the CDC, to, of course, funding for research across the universities. This is the very sinew of American competitiveness and power. Yeah. And as I said earlier, a lot of it is through the brightest and the best from abroad who want to work here. And they're being poached.
Stand by, because Tolliver, America's reputation abroad has been an important part of our politics for a long time before Trump.
Yeah, listen to this clip of former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice during the 2012 Republican National Convention.
Worth noting, Tolliver, that Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State during the Iraq War, which, of course, many people would agree was very damaging to America's reputation overseas.
Yeah.
Well. More of the middle coming right up.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world. The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years right where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here with my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. In this hour, we're asking you if you're worried about America's standing in the world. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. I'm joined by former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe, General Wesley Clark, and Ed Luce, U.S. National Editor and columnist at the Financial Times. And in terms of my reputation here in this country, at least, I like to not make promises I can't keep. And I did tell Leslie I was going to go back to her. She's back. Let's go to Leslie one more time. Leslie, you were saying you've been overseas and working with other professors.
Yeah. So can you hear me now better?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm on Wi-Fi, so hopefully it's better. Great. So I spent 4 months in the UK and Europe last summer, and leading up to the election, I got back right before the election. And I can tell you, out of the dozens and dozens of people I met from all over the world, including Australia, Brazil, what have you, there's only one person that I met that was actually hoping for Trump's election, and that was a man who had previously been in Viktor Orban's special forces. So as your viewers or listeners, I'm sure know, yes, in Hungary. So he was the only one that I met out of dozens and dozens of people, professionals, students, et cetera, who was actually looking forward to President Trump's election. So and I'm going back next week, and I'm most concerned for coming back in the country because, of my social media presence and I've spoken up against and protested against the current administration. So I'm not concerned about going abroad. I'm concerned about coming back as an American citizen, third and fourth generation American citizen, so of immigrants.
Yeah,
so.
Wow. That's very interesting. Leslie, thank you very much for that. Wesley Clark, as you look at the polls of the countries in the world, there are some that were quite happy about President Trump's election, including, I think, India is at the top of the list, and Russia, Israel. There are some countries where this is probably great news for them. They're liking what they're seeing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, the Israel and Bibi Netanyahu have had a relationship with President Trump. And, they talked before about the Abraham Accords. President Trump did some good things in the Middle East. And I think we have to be really balanced about this, Jeremy. I mean, President Trump, when he decides to do something, gets his facts together, he can move decisively. That's a good thing. He's not held back by the bureaucracy. He is held back by polling. But the flip side of it is there a bureaucracy? Is there a staff behind him? If you look at this latest brouhaha about the cutoff of weapons to Ukraine, you have to say, what's the policy? Who's making the decisions? President Trump says he is, but the evidence doesn't suggest that that's always the case. So I think that obviously President Putin, Mr. Patrushev, one of the top intelligence officers after the election, said President Trump has sought assistance from certain quarters and incurred certain obligations, which I'm sure he will honor. I mean, it was a chilling statement. It's been broadcast clearly. Nobody knows what this relationship is, but what we see right now is that maybe Putin's not so fond of Mr. Trump. But certainly Russia was happy. India was happy because the Biden administration was concerned about human rights. Ever since President Jimmy Carter started on human rights, it's been a problem in terms of the power of America and who we relate to and how we relate, because some of the people that we would like to have on our side, they can't have a kind of
bad human rights records.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, which ones do we pay attention to and which ones do we not?
Them on human rights, and at the same time, the Russians and the Chinese are out there saying, "We'll give you money." So it's a tough balancing act for the United States.
Yeah. Let's go to Frank, who's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hi, Frank. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, my thoughts are, yes, America's definitely the standing in the world, globally speaking. We've taken a hit, and hopefully after Trump is no longer in office, we can recover. I don't think it's going to be an overnight situation. Basically, America's left a sour taste in a lot of countries and mouths. A lot of people that basically relied on us, and the dismantling of USAID, the situation about what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. We used to be the police of the world, and that used to be something that some people didn't like, and now we've just recoiled to being a bully, and it's not a good thing. And I want to say hats off to General Wesley Clark. Thank you for your service. Always thought of him as a true American, down the middle guy, and so much respect.
Well, he's proving it this hour. He's definitely coming across as middle this hour. Thank you very much for that, Frank. Ed Luce, what do you think about that, America as a bully? Because I will say, I was brought up in Illinois, the land of Lincoln, brought up as many Americans were to think we're the good guys in the world. We're trying to, of course, we make a lot of mistakes, but we are trying to do the right thing. The idea of America as a bully, what do you think about that?
So, I think it's a bit more complex than saying America didn't used to be a bully and now it is. I think the Iraq War, that was under a different administration. The Vietnam War was under several different previous administrations. The use of the dollar's primacy internationally to impose sanctions, secondary sanctions through withdrawing the dollar from those who don't comply. The weaponization, in other words, of the dollar, that's been going on for decades, building up for decades. I think there is a substantial portion of the world, that was quite resentful of the United States before Trump came along. So I don't want to sort of oversimplify things. But Trump is sort of taking it to a cartoonish level. One of your earlier callers said that the rest of the world has been ripping America off for too long, which is the Trump line on trade, his so-called Liberation Day. This is really not true. I mean, if you look at the European Union and you look at the United States, they each have average tariffs on each other of about 2.3 and 2.5%. Tiny, completely meaningless. Doesn't have any impact on trade. And those countries with whom America does have deficits are often through services, because when we talk about deficits, it's deficits in goods. But through services are buying a lot more from America than America is buying from them. One of which, of course, is education. Foreigners spend, I think it's almost $50 billion a year on educating themselves in the United States. This is a massive surplus America has, which Trump bizarrely is reducing by making American education less attractive. So it's not really so much the sort of bully element. I mean, that's sort of always going to be there with the superpower. It's the sort of complete arbitrary inconsistency. You don't know what he's going to do next. If you make a deal with Trump, will he stick to it? Will it be upheld next week? It's just that you can't plan. There is no certainty. And businesses, investors, everybody likes certainty.
People like certainty.
Predictability.
Let's go to Chris, who's in Southern California. Hi, Chris. What do you think about America's standing in the world?
Yes, we have about 3.5 years, give or take a few months, of the Trump regime left. And I'm curious, we talk a lot about how things are going right now. How will it be possible, with all the precedents that have been set and with support of the Supreme Court, for us to reverse these trends that have happened, not only from the standing of having new leaders come in, but also the voters that continue to vote for this regime? How will this be changed back, and is it possible to get back to where we were?
Interesting question, and of course that assumes that the next election would go a different way than this one did. Wesley Clark, what do you think? How do you respond to Chris?
I think it's a really tough problem you've given us. I know the Democrats believe that come 2026, this big, beautiful bill will just weigh the Republicans down. But actually, all the cuts really don't happen until after the 2026 midterm elections. So what happens in between now and then is no tax on tips, larger standard deductions, all the benefits are up front. It's smart politics. I think it's going to be a tough row. I think America is deeply divided. And I think until we really understand how to deal with social media, we can understand how to communicate and work through these differences. And remember, we do have adversaries abroad who want us to be divided, and they are pumping the disinformation in here as rapidly as they can. And they're doing as much as they can abroad against American tourists as well. So we're in a different environment. It's going to be tough, and we're going to have to really find new ways to communicate to the American people. I hope the younger generation coming up sees it more clearly. The electorate turns over about 1% per year. So we're going to have younger voters. Some of the older people are going to be gone for the next election. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but I do know this, that people abroad, they heard Joe Biden say, America's back. And then 4 years later, there's Donald Trump saying to Europe, forget about us. We're looking at Asia.
Well,
and so,
I think back to Obama coming in doing the same thing.
I don't think it's going to be easy to regain the reputation for reliability, consistency that we won through Democratic and Republican administrations through the Cold War and afterwards.
Ken is calling from Yardley, Pennsylvania. Hi, Ken. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi, how you doing? Listen, I think it's real important.
Oh, that was going to be good, too.
Okay.
I can tell.
I know. That did sound like it was going to be good. Let's go to Joe. And Joe is in... oh, wait, maybe we have Ken back. Hang on a second. See, there's like all these lights on the screen, and I can... Maybe we have Ken. No. Joe is in Denton, Texas. Hi, Joe. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hello there. Thank you for taking my call. So I think the framing of this discussion is somewhat dishonest. I find what the Trump administration is doing to be horrific. People have died and will continue to die because of his policies, and we need a coalition of as many different groups of people as we can to oppose that administration. But I don't think that the global view of the United States up to this point has been a positive one, because when you look at Central and South America, our policy has been death squads, assassinations, coups, whether in Honduras, El Salvador, Chile, you name it. If you look to Asia, our government propped up the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot because we thought it would damage the Vietnamese. When you look to the Middle East, you see the devastation we left in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Africa,
so you think it's dishonest? You think it's dishonest, Joe, because you're saying we never had a good reputation to begin with. I will say that at the beginning of the show, I said 46% of people around the world think the U.S. will have a positive influence. That's a 13% drop since last fall. So it's just based on some of the polling. But I take your point, and Ed Luce, you brought this up, but it's there have been a lot of things in the past, starting with slavery, that have given the U.S. a bad reputation around the world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, America has blundered many times, but I think if you sort of take the 30,000-foot view of the sort of two great threats of the 20th century, namely Nazism and Soviet communism, America was on the right side of those. And if it hadn't been, it's not clear that they would have been defeated. So I do appreciate what the caller says. And what she does, she describes what I was trying to capture earlier, that it's not always been hunky-dory. And large parts of the world are skeptical of America's power, even at the best of times. But if you sort of sort out the blunders, and there have been blunders, from the really big calls, America has been indispensable.
We were waiting to find out what Ken had to say, and he's back. So, Ken, now you're on again. So go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
What happened? You got me worried. But I'll repeat just real quick. The question is the perception the world has of America, not how we got here, how we got it, what the perception is. And it's America. It's not the current administration. Okay? And
it's America. It's not the current administration, you're saying. Yeah.
Your question was, how do they perceive America? And my comment when I first called was, I think it was my sister, somebody I know said about the No King demonstrations. They said the rest of the world has to see that. administration. They need to see we're not behind it, and it's temporary. And the other thing I have to say this: lack of restraint, and lack of scruples is not political genius. I'll tell you a real fast
I think we've got it.
anecdote.
I'm going to cut our losses and take what we heard you say, which is that half of America is not behind this, which I think is a really interesting point. Wesley Clark, do people make a distinction between Donald Trump and the United States? Because it is a divided country, and a lot of people did not vote for him. And so whatever people are upset about, they may say, oh, well, that's not all of America. That's half of America.
There is a certain distinction, but there's also a worry associated with that. So when President Trump said, I think it was in Iowa on 4th of July, that he hates Democrats because they vote against him, people abroad are like, oh my God, the President of the United States hates half the people in the country. And so it worries them that it's yes, there may be some, quote, good Americans there, but there's a terrible political split and a divide. And they're asking, what is this coming to? That's the real concern about America's standing. It's you look at the United States and you say, where's this going? What's this headed to? People say it's going to some kind of authoritarian organization. I keep seeing online people saying, he's going to cancel the 2026 elections. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that it's a really, really tough time for America. And if there's any of our friends from abroad listening, please be patient with us. This is democracy. We're going to have to work our way through this.
Yeah. I will say, by the way, we have some phone issues this hour, and I'm finding out now why that is. The system is overloaded. There are already 50 voicemails that have come in just during the show while we've been talking. So that's why these phone lines are sounding a little bit awkward. But I'm going to then go to you, Ed Luce, as the last word. As you've heard very many different opinions this hour, what do you think? People that are thinking, how do we move forward from this with all the things that are happening in terms of the U.S. reputation around the world?
It's a really good question. Of course, we have to make a lot of leaps of imagination to get to 2028 and Trump not running. I mean, let's assume he doesn't get the Supreme Court to reinterpret the 22nd Amendment that stops you from running for 3 terms, and that he doesn't run for a 3rd term, and that there is a Democrat or a more conventional Republican. They're not good. You can never step into the same river twice. It's not like you resume where you left off and Trump again is labeled an aberration. He has changed so much in terms of what Elon Musk has done to huge parts of the federal bureaucracy, the collapse of the USAID programs that one of your callers was talking about. The fact that China has moved in to fill the vacuums where America has moved out, the fact that America's allies are making arrangements, are hedging against the risk that America never comes back in the form that we remember it in. So Democrats are going to have to be a lot more imaginative and courageous and stress test themselves a lot more than I'm seeing evidence of right now. At the moment, the strategy seems to be just you wait till the midterms. And I don't think it's good enough in this situation. They need to think out of the box.
Yeah. And we will. That's a perfect note to end it on. Ed Luce, U.S. national editor and columnist of the Financial Times, and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, General Wesley Clark. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget, The Middle is available as a podcast in partnership with iHeart Podcasts on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our next pod exclusive, One Thing Trump Did, is about a collapse of tourism to the U.S. Very related to this. It's going to come into our feed soon. We'll be back next week with another edition of The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'll talk to you then.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.